All right, so we're diving into this OVC tournament matchup, and wow, you sent over some pretty interesting stuff here. It looks like we got a real nail-biter on our hands with Lindenwood and Morehead State.
Yeah, you know what's really fascinating here is the storylines we got going Morehead State. The defending champs looking to keep that reign going.
Right.
But Lindenwood, man, they are hungry for their first ever tournament win.
Yeah, it's the classic underdog story. And to add even more intrigue, Lindenwood has been a turnover machine this season. They actually lead the OVC in steals. So Morehead State's ball handling is going to be really put to the test.
Absolutely, and that defensive pressure from Lindenwood could be a huge factor. But before we get too deep into the analysis, let's lay out the basics for everybody. This game tips off Wednesday, March 5th at 9:30 p.m. Eastern at the Ford Center in Evansville, Indiana.
Okay.
You can catch all the action on ESPN+.
Perfect. So you won't miss a second of this potentially explosive matchup. And speaking of explosive, the over-under is set at 132.5 points.
Yeah.
That seems a little high considering Morehead State's recent struggles on offense, don't you think?
Well, that's where things get interesting. See, while Morehead State has averaged just 66 points in their recent games, Lindenwood's offense has been heating up, especially on the road. They've put up some big numbers in their last few away wins, which, might explain why the odds makers are leaning towards a high-scoring affair.
Okay, I see where you're going with this. So we've got a team known for its defense in Lindenwood going up against a team that typically dominates the boards in Morehead State. Who has the edge?
Well, that is the million-dollar question. Lindenwood's ability to force those turnovers and create fast break opportunities can't be ignored.
Right.
But Morehead State consistently wins the rebounding battle, which could give them those crucial second chance points. It's really a clash of styles.
Yeah, and to make things even more unpredictable, both teams split their regular season matchups with the home team winning each time.
Exactly. So past performance might not be the best indicator here. We need to dig a little deeper into these individual matchups and recent trends.
Well, let's not forget about Lindenwood's secret weapon, Jadis Jones. He was named OVC Freshman of the Week a record 12 times.
He is definitely a player to watch, averaging nearly 13 points and 6 rebounds a game. He could be the X factor for Lindenwood, especially with Morehead State's recent struggles on the offensive end. Jones could really exploit some weaknesses there.
That brings us to the predictions. You flagged a couple for us, Bleacher Nation and Pick Dogs. What are they saying about this matchup?
Both are leaning towards a Lindenwood victory. Bleacher Nation predicts a 70-68 win for the Lions, and Pick Dogs also highlights Morehead State's offensive woes as a key factor.
Interesting. So the experts seem to be favoring Lindenwood, but you're saying we shouldn't count Morehead State out just yet?
Absolutely not. They are the defending champs for a reason, and their experience in these high-pressure tournament games could give them an edge. But there's one more layer to this that we need to peel back before we, get to our final thoughts.
Okay, I'm all ears. What else should we be considering?
Well, we talked about Morehead State's potential scoring struggles, right? But let's look a little closer at Lindenwood's recent offensive surge. I mean, they've really found their rhythm, putting up over 70 points in 5 of their last 7 games.
And you pointed out how the over-under is set at 132.5 points. Are you thinking what I'm thinking? Could this be a sneaky good over bet?
I think it has potential. Remember those trends we were talking about? 12 of Lindenwood's last 14 night games against comparable opponents have hit 133 points or more.
Wow, that's a pretty compelling stat. So even though Morehead State might struggle to score, Lindenwood's offense alone could potentially push this game over the total.
Exactly. And let's not forget, even with their recent slump, Morehead State's still capable of putting up points. They have a strong front court presence, and if they can control the offensive boards, they could contribute enough to help that overhit.
So we've got Lindenwood's high-scoring offense, Morehead State's potential to contribute even with their struggles, and a history of high-scoring games from Lindenwood. It's starting to sound like that over's looking pretty good.
Yeah, it's definitely worth considering, especially when you factor in the pace of play. Lindenwood loves to push the tempo, forcing turnovers, getting out in transition. That style of play naturally leads to more possessions and potentially more points.
So the speed of the game itself could contribute to a higher score. And you mentioned earlier that Morehead State wants to slow things down, right? Could that backfire on them if Lindenwood gets rolling?
It's possible if Morehead State can't dictate the pace and Lindenwood starts getting easy baskets in transition, they might be forced to play catch-up, which could lead them to take more risks on offense and potentially contribute to that higher score.
So even if Morehead State tries to play their game,
Yeah.
Lindenwood style could force them out of their comfort zone and lead to more points for both teams.
Precisely. It's a fascinating dynamic. And don't forget the emotional element. This is a single elimination tournament game, so both teams are going to be playing with a sense of urgency.
Right.
That can often lead to more aggressive play and potentially more fouls, free throws, more points.
Okay. I'm convinced you've laid out a pretty compelling case for the over in this game. But before we lock in our bets, let's talk about the key players. You already mentioned Jadis Jones as someone to watch for Lindenwood. Who else should we be keeping an eye on?
Well, on Lindenwood's side, Markeith Browning II is a crucial piece of their offense. He's a reliable scorer and a great facilitator, averaging over 12 points and 3 assists per game. His ability to break down defenses and create scoring opportunities for himself and his teammates will be key for Lindenwood.
And what about Morehead State? Who are their go-to guys?
Kenny White Jr. is their leading scorer and a force in the paint. He's a tough matchup for anyone, and if he can establish himself early, it could be a long night for Lindenwood.
So we've got two potent offensive players in Jones and White Jr. Do you think their individual performances could be a deciding factor in this game?
Absolutely. If either one of those guys has a big night, it could really swing the momentum in favor of their team. And let's not forget about the supporting casts.
You're right. Role players can be huge in tournament games. Who are some of the unsung heroes we should be watching for?
Keep an eye on Lindenwood's Reggie Bass. He's a sharpshooter from deep, and if he gets hot, he can really stretch the floor for the Lions on Morehead State side. Drew Thelwell is a tenacious defender and rebounder. His ability to limit second chance opportunities for Lindenwood could be crucial for the Eagles.
So we've got star power, depth, and a clash of styles. It seems like all the ingredients for a high-scoring, exciting game.
It definitely does, but there's one more factor that could impact the final score that we haven't discussed yet.
Okay, I'm on the edge of my seat. What is it?
Okay.
I'm on the edge of my seat. What is it?
Coaching Morehead State's Preston Spradlin has been there, done that. He knows how to prepare his team for the pressure cooker of a tournament game.
While Lindenwood's Kyle Gerdeman is looking for his first taste of tournament success, do you think that experience factor could play a role?
It's certainly something to consider. Spradlin's ability to make adjustments on the fly and keep his players composed in crunch time. That could be a difference maker, but don't underestimate Gerdeman. He's a rising star in the coaching ranks, and he's instilled a belief in this Lindenwood team. They're not afraid of the moment.
So we've got experience versus hunger on the sidelines. That adds another layer of intrigue to this already fascinating matchup. But let's bring it back to you, the listener. You're gearing up for this game. You've got the over-under at 132.5 points in mind. What are your final thoughts? What's the best bet here?
Well, based on everything we've discussed, I'm leaning towards the over Lindenwood's high-powered offense, the potential for Morehead State to contribute even with their struggles, the fast-paced nature of Lindenwood's game all point towards a high-scoring affair, plus those historical trends we talked about, Lindenwood hitting the over in 12 of their last 14 night games against similar opponents. That's hard to ignore.
It certainly is. So for our listeners, it sounds like the smart money is on the over, but we always encourage you to do your own research and make the bet that you feel most comfortable with.
Absolutely. And remember, anything can happen in a single elimination tournament game. That's the beauty of March Madness.
Couldn't agree more. But no matter the outcome, it sounds like we're in for a thrilling game between two very evenly matched teams, Lindenwood's disruptive defense and explosive offense versus Morehead State's championship pedigree and rebounding dominance. It's a classic clash of styles, and we can't wait to see how it unfolds.
And for you, the listener, keep an eye on that total points line. Will it soar over as we've discussed, or will this be a defensive slugfest? It's all up in the air, and that's what makes this matchup so exciting.
We've given you the insights, the trends, and the key players to watch. Now it's up to you to make your own predictions and enjoy the game. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the Lindenwood versus Morehead State matchup. We'll be back soon with another exciting breakdown, but until then, happy watching.